Welcome to Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. I am Juliet Hahn. I'm here with my co-host, Brent Sopel, and we are here to change the narrative. We want to educate, but we also want you guys to understand what it is like to be dyslexic and how things can change. So join us every week for Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. Welcome back to Word Blindness, Dyslexia Exposed. I am here with my co-host, very smiley, Brent Sopel. Happy Monday.
I haven't seen Mr. Golden Sun for a while here in Chicago. So
you went out.
You're my golden sun today. So keep shining.
I think you went out. You're frozen. Wait, you went out. You were frozen. I don't know what you said. You said, I haven't seen. I know. What'd you say?
Golden Sun. I haven't seen Mr. Golden Sun for like a week. So you're my golden sun this morning.
Oh, that's so nice. Because I haven't seen it either. It's so, well, I should say, when I was in Florida, it was sunny, but we were inside the whole time. But it's been raining since I got back here too. So you're my golden sun too.
So where do we start?
Well, okay. So I think there's a lot of things that we can do. I mean, Jesus, my attention deficit is like the charts.
There goes a squirrel.
Exactly. Oh, it's not being in routine. I mean, that's one of the things, traveling as much as I have in the last couple of weeks, it's made me even more aware of me, which is, I'm like, okay. How
do you feel about that? How do you like that?
I don't mind that, but when I still can't get in my routine, it's frustrating because I know what I need to do. And when I can't do it, it makes me more frustrated. And then I'm not fair to everyone else around me because I know I'm grumpy and I'm trying to get back on routine.
You know, that routine, obviously we talked about how crazy my routine and stuff for hockey, and everybody's like, like it was the craziest things. It's the easiest to get out of our routines. It's so hard to go get back into them, but they are so important for us.
Yeah. And for mental health. And I have to laugh because I literally heard when I was like, I got to get back in my routine. Okay. And today I couldn't do my yoga like I normally do. And I was like, normally that would just whatever. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to try to do it this afternoon because I know I have to get back. I've done like, 3 yoga sessions in the last, I can't even tell you how many weeks. And so, but all I heard is you say that because you mentioned that before on the last podcast, and I started laughing to myself like a crazy person by myself. But I heard you say it's so important to stay on routine, but it's so hard to get back on routine. And it's really true. And I had said to you, knowing that I'm traveling, all good stuff, right? It's all amazing things that I'm doing. And I'm so fortunate that I'm able to do it. But I think I even said to you, sometimes it's hard for me to think about because I know it's going to get me off my routine. And then that frustrates me because it's so like, it's like I don't know. I don't even know how to explain it because it just gets me in my head being like, okay, how can I try to stay on routine when I'm on vacation or traveling for work or traveling for business? Like, what can I do? And then it just goes all shit because I'm all or nothing, right? So it's like I go to the other extreme, but I'm not going as extreme as I used to. Like I used to be like boozing it up, which I'm not drinking, which is great. So like I'm coming back. So like I'm doing little steps, but it's so hard to get back. And it's like,
it's traveling. People like, Brent, you're 47, your kids are all growing up, you're on travel the world. I'm like, shoot me. No. I travel, and nobody ever, if you're not, if you don't traveling, out of your routine, it takes a lot out of you. It takes a lot. I literally traveled my whole life. That was it. My dad's, traveling salesman. You drive 18 hours a day, no problem. Hockey, travel around the world, live in Russia, everywhere. One thing I haven't done is gone nowhere.
That's so true. But I love that. I love that you just said that.
That's for me is going nowhere is amazing.
You said when you were traveling for hockey, because this always like fascinates me. Because again, I love to travel, but then it always is like, you get back and it's like, it takes you like days to get back into it. When you were traveling for hockey with your teams, was it different than like going on like a vacation because it was like you still had those routines because you had your kind of like on the road routine? Can you take us through that a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah, it's obviously very different traveling when you're traveling for hockey or vacation. But the hard part about hockey is that our bodies, we're born, we get up, we're supposed to ramp up our bodies, ramp up our adrenal system, during the day. Then at night, we bring them down. Well, hockey's the opposite. So, during the day, we're low. Then, 7:00 at night, we're at peak. No, your adrenaline and everything doesn't come down till, so some of us, and I go talk about it on here. I never took a nap, but all the guys did. So game nights, they wouldn't fall asleep till 4, 5, 6 in the morning, or we'd be traveling, just say we were in Denver, we get on the plane after the game and we we fly to wherever we're going. If it's going back to Vancouver or going back, to Calgary or going to LA or, and a lot of times, most of the times when I played in the West Division, we changed time zones every time play everywhere we went. So you go from each. So my body has got no idea what is up and what is down, what is left. But we never had days off. 3 games in 4 nights in 3 different cities, and so we stayed on routine. But, we might get in a hotel at 4 a.m. Have to be at the rink at 10 a.m. So it was, then, I was always hurt. So I had to be there. I was always there early, and I was there 3 hours before the game. And so it's definitely not like a vacation. I didn't take too many vacations in my life because I hated it.
Yeah, well, there's downtime. There's downtime.
Oh, can I get on a flight again? Can I please? Can I go to another hotel, please? And I lived in Russia for 3 years. I ate every single meal in a restaurant for 3 years. Oh, can we go out to eat again, please? So
no,
so
it's so true, different. And it's
again, the difference between obviously we're talking about you're going to Vegas for the Super Bowl, and it's such a bad sport. We'd play, I think the most we play like 14, 15, 16 games in a month. They play that in a whole season.
I know. It's crazy.
The year we won the Stanley Cup,
the difference.
In 2010, we had some exhibition games in Europe. We started in Helsinki for 2 games, came back, we had the Olympics. I want to say it was 115 or 118 games that we played that year.
I mean, I want people to kind of relate. I want them to think about everything that you just said, because there's not everyone that's made for that. I mean, that's what also sets professional athletes apart from even just an amazing athlete, right? There's all those different things. And we've talked about the mindset, the ability, right? Your natural athletic ability, but there's so many different things. Like you have to be able to adapt to all of that. You have to be able to kind of mold yourself into that. And that's not an easy thing, whether you have the athletic ability or not. That 1% of you guys that can do that. I mean, that's like, and especially if you're an all or nothing kind of person, which you are, but you kind of have to be not. And how do you do, like, fascinating. I have so many questions, but
yeah, it's, and trying to get, getting up hurt every day.
Yeah.
So, like for 30 years, I've been getting up hurt every day, Right. My kids, when we're walking somewhere. If I drop something, they knew they had to pick it up because my, 300 disc in my back. If I bent down, I may never get back up. So,
yeah,
they're, Dad, I don't want to play hockey. Like, I don't want to look like you. I don't want to feel like you. I'm like perfect.
Right. Well, because that's the thing. I mean, you're getting an ass kick, and you're kicking ass and especially a sport where it's not like, it's not golf. It's like non-contact. I mean, you're getting like. There's so much contact, and especially back when you were playing. I mean, that was like fights and all these things. So it is really something for people to think about. And then just adding an extra layer of like, you had this trauma of not knowing about your dyslexia. You had this, trauma of, everything that you were going through. It's like, that's why I hate when people are like, oh, they're professional actors, they're actors. Like, they have it, they have everything. It's their, I want to live their life. I'm like, you got to think about what you have and then think about what people are going through, because everyone goes through stuff. And this is kind of, do you see how I did that? Do you see how I like linked it around?
Well done. Right? I was just sitting back and amazed how you just transitioned to that. You got this, girl.
Yeah.
You go unicorn.
But seriously, we all have our stuff, whether it's small or big. And sometimes our stuff comes out, even if we think we've dealt with it. I mean, for women, hormones, different things at different times of the month, different times of the year, different times of our lives. And men, the same thing. And it's like when you don't talk about it and you stuff it and you don't really, even if it's not like a therapy session, but it's like writing or speaking or doing something like that, it's really important. And we all just have to be more gentle with each other, because this is an angry world. I mean, you're going through stuff. I mean, every day. I some days I'm like, well, Jesus.
You know, to jump in there quickly, what you just said, we got to be, we got to be more gentle world. We got to be gentle to ourselves first. You can't expect somebody to, you've heard me say it many times. If you don't love yourself, how do you expect somebody to love you? If you're not going to be gentle to yourself, how do you expect somebody else to be gentle? That's not how this works. So it starts with gentle to yourself, and we're obviously the biggest critics on ourselves. Nobody wants to look back at the trauma. Nobody want to look. It's not fun. No, I don't see that. Rather, as a kid, do you want to go back and look at trauma, or you want to play some 7-Up? What was that? Heads down, thumbs up.
Oh, I love that game. Yeah,
but
I totally
nobody wants to.
Game.
But how do you get better? How do you become a better person? How do you better, a husband? How do you become a better wife? How do you become a better cousin? How do you better uncle and a better aunt? You've got to go back. That's it.
And yeah.
Everybody has something. Every one of us has stuff going on.
And this is where, if we don't deal with ourselves like as adults, and we really don't kind of introspectively go through things and talk about things, like how can we raise humans that are going to be, as normal as they can? Because we all, we've talked about this. I always laugh. I'll be like, oh, where am I? What have I done that my kid's going to be sitting on the couch someday or talking to a therapist? What did I do? Because we're not all perfect, but if we can go back and kind of heal what we're doing. I mean, you and I have talked about this, we both have healed so much in our lives, whether we have a bigger trauma, smaller trauma, but just talking about it. I mean, being on the podcast and seeing you on Mondays and talking about things. I mean, we laugh because, as the listeners know, I'm like, yeah, no, I've dealt with my stuff. But then every once in a while, something just recently came up and I was like, holy fuck. Okay. I thought I dealt with that. I think I did deal with it, but I think I then maybe didn't deal with it completely. Right. There's times where you're like, okay, in that time of your life, right. How did I show up? How did I heal? How did I think I healed? Because did I really, was it really something that was a healing experience, or was it more of a Band-Aid on it for a while?
No. And actually you touched on, really big in this, in this world is, why didn't I had somebody say to me, why didn't I get the message, when I first went to rehab? They went 3 or 4 times. Because we weren't ready for that. So you just touch on something as we might have dealt with it. Let's say it's something when you're 25. You dealt with that the way you could as a 25-year-old. It's different than the way you are going to do as a 45-year-old. Because maybe even if you did have kids, at 25, they're young kids. Well, when you're 45, they're going to be older. They've gone through more things. You've gone through more things. So the cycle of your trauma and going back, I don't know, again, I'm Dr. Brent, farmer, hockey player. I don't think you ever fully go through them, because every stage of your life brings up something, a different point in each one of these things. Now it's, we talk about school for both of us. Is it a trigger? Absolutely. Every time it comes up and we deal with it a little bit more, you're in a different phase of your life. You and I are both in a different phase of our life. Do we deal with it a little bit differently each time? And does it help us heal and become better people? Absolutely. It never goes away. Trauma never goes away. Pain never goes away. It's how do you look at it? Do you look at it glass half full, half empty? Poor me. There's a million different ways. But we all have it. Yeah.
And I love what you just said about the stages of your lives, because we do become more we become more wise and we become more kind of, again, introspective when you're having conversations, when you're talking to someone else, or it's like, oh, wait, I kind of forgot about that in my life because I dealt with it and put it on the shelf, right? Because it was like, yes, as you said, like my 15-year-old self, my 18-year-old self, my 25-year-old self. And then as you have kids and you're raising kids and you're going through stuff like how we, school, right? I was like, oh yeah, no, that's all good. And then going through every year with the IEP, I'm like, oh fuck, I'm not good. This is, sucks. And I know that the next stage is the same thing, right? And so I think that's a really, I love that you just brought that up because again, it's another thing for someone. I want someone to listen to that twice because if you really think about that, it's going to bring you some of it's going to bring you to a different level because it really is so important. As you said, we're always going to be healing. We're always going to be dealing with stuff from our past, whether it's a friend going through something that triggers you, whether it's something that you saw, something you heard, something, family members going through, but it's also the time of your life that you're meant to deal with it. And that's the beautiful thing. And I think so many people don't acknowledge it. The same as like when I talk about following your dreams and your passion and all of that stuff. Like, if something keeps coming to you, you have to look into it. You can't stuff it or just brush it away because you don't feel like dealing with it. It's the same thing with trauma. Something keeps coming up. Just sit and pause and be like, okay, what is that? What is that? What do I need to kind of think? And so many people, I would say there's not a lot of people that want to sit with that. Really, who does? But
I don't know anybody who wants to. let me be clear. I don't think there's anybody, any of the listeners, we don't want to. There's things that we don't want to do, but we know we have to.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's exactly what it is.
So I don't think there's anybody can say, yeah, can I wake up? And my daughter said the other day, damn, if I would have known I wouldn't have gone in this car accident, I would have went, no shit, Sherlock. Because none of us, if we knew that was going to happen, we wouldn't have gone. But let's just,
I love that.
That brings us into, an interesting weekend. Your message, a couple things that happened to me, last night. If you want to dive into it, with the listeners, because it leads right into everything that we're talking about of trauma and dealing with things. Don't even know you're dealing with things and why. And it's very interesting. Go ahead.
No, I want you to go ahead because that was a really good transition. How you just did that. So I'm going to let you lead.
So last night, I was coaching the Brother Rice, the high school team here, and I'm in the lobby. There's a JV game, and then the varsity game after. In Canada, I don't even know how they equivalent like that because we don't have JV and varsity.
Oh, in Canada. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Was it 1 and 2?
Yeah, no, yeah. The grade 11 and 12 game team and the 9 and 10s, But I had a gentleman come up to me. Now, I spoke at Brother Rice about a year ago. Yeah, it's a Catholic all-boys school on the south side of Chicago. I spoke there through, to all 750 boys. I talked for about an hour. And then after that, in the evening, I did an open session with all the parents, whoever wanted to come. And, telling my story. And a gentleman raises his hand. He's probably about 80 years old now. I think he was in the Army. And he's dyslexic. He's like, I've never said this. And, so I saw him last night. He's like, Brent, do you remember? I'm like, oh, I remember you, sir. Again, his grandson, I think his 2 grandsons are playing on the JV team. So that's why they're there before our game. Because I coached the varsity. He goes, in 40 years of AA and all this other stuff, nobody has helped me more in my lifetime than you did.
Oh, I love that.
And,
I love that.
In a 30-minute conversation, he's like, I'm sitting there listening to it going, is this asshole reading my mail? How does he know this stuff about me? How is he finishing my sentences? I'm not even talking. How does he know? He's like, nobody else. He goes, here, I want you to introduce you to my wife. My wife is a second grade teacher. She still makes me sound things out. Let me bring her over here. Goes against her, brings her over. Cutest little lady ever. And she says, thank you. I don't know what, she's like, you made him okay for the first time ever, and you helped him turn a page that nobody's ever helped.
That's incredible.
Now, listeners, we talk about this, and there's one more to go. There's a second story to this, a completely different family, but we always talk about share, the old rate, review, and share. You have no idea what this means. This gentleman, now, he served. I think he was in the Army. The grandkids heard me speak during the day and came, I think, if I remember correctly, came home and said, Grandpa, you got to come and listen to this. So they brought him there because they're dyslexic, right? So they brought them there. Same kind of thing. If they didn't come back and tell him, his life wouldn't be where it is today. And when we talk about sharing this, these podcasts, and we share the documentary that I've done, you don't know who this is going to hit. And then later on, halfway through the game, in the second period, we go in there for you non-ice hockey people. The little Zamboni comes out and cleans the ice, looks all nice and glistening, and all the players go back to the dressing room. And I'm walking back. Now, and my buddy Vince is why I'm there. His wife stops me and calls me over. And there's a lady there. And she said, oh my God, Brent, I can't believe you're here. You've changed my daughter's life. Oh my God, it's amazing. You need to write a book, because when she was diagnosed in grade 3, she just wanted to tell everybody how she read and why she read slower. Oh my God, I can't believe you're here. This is amazing. No idea who she is. None. Now, then game's over, come back, and Vince is like, oh, my wife just texted me, hey, she wants to take a picture. I walk over there, take a picture with the daughter, who's, I think, high school. I think she might have been there when, it was senior day, so I don't know if she had a crush on a boy that was there. Because the whole funny thing is that Vince's wife had no idea who she was. I thought they're friends. Had no idea. She was sitting in front of her, just couldn't believe that I was there. Oh my God, he changed my daughter, and Vince's wife was sitting right behind there. So I thought had no idea. Just, again,
incredible.
You don't know who this is hit. And this lady's like, you need to write a book. And so I took a picture, with the daughter, and she was so happy. I'm like, here's Team Crazy. And, but these are two stories of two people or two families that I came across, in short conversations. The other, lady and her daughter, no idea who they are, had no idea, what they are, what they're about. And she's like, what you're doing for dyslexia is the most amazing thing. Don't stop what you're doing. Please write a book. Again, you don't know who might hear this. You don't know the effects of this, of how dumb we feel every single day, how isolated, how secluded, how misunderstood we are. And now, like, those are amazing stories. Gentleman's 80 years old. And then, they started talking to Elizabeth after, and she kept asking questions and kept going. They just hit 50-year anniversary together. I'm like, Jesus, I'm trying to live to 50. Never mind together with somebody for 50 years. Second grade teacher, for her to say thank you and you changed his life. Like, people, you don't know that. Like, that's how in depth and that's how deep these things go. And then, we're going to transition to your story, Juliet, what you told me yesterday, to come off the heels of these two stories. Please go ahead.
I'm like sitting with my silly smile. Like, so when people watch back, I mean, Brent, that is, and you shared a little bit with me yesterday. Well, not even like a sentence. You're like, I'm not going to tell you until, and I was like, oh my God, what is it?
Boo, boo.
Totally.
You're so pissed.
But I know, I was like, fuck you. Okay. Well, I went to bed. So that was good. but that is exactly, and it's because you have the balls to stand up and talk about hard things. And you have the balls to swallow your pride and be like, it's not about me. It is about helping someone. And that's exactly what you do every day. And that's exactly what a lot of people see you do every day. But then there's this whole other world that doesn't see what you are all about. And that is so incredible that I mean, I love that. And I was going to ask you, I love that Elizabeth was there to witness that. I mean, I love that she gets to see kind of all sides of your life in different ranks, and that you do. I mean, you've been doing this by yourself, just, whoever needs you, you're there and you'll talk. But that's why we are doing this podcast. That's why I stalked you.
Yeah, you did. But in what you just said, I'm misunderstood every single day, and that's okay. But there isn't a day in my life I'm led by an ego. I'm led by pain. So everybody in Hoffman Estates that I work for and coach with, every one of them are assholes. I lead with pain so that another kid never feels the way that I do. This gentleman is 80 years old. He had a smile on his face like I've never seen before.
I wish I was there to hug him.
And he's like, I'm going to call my wife, who still makes me sound things out.
Oh my God. I just recently had a conversation with someone that was dyslexic, and they were talking about the thesaurus. The guy David, who we're going to actually interview this week. He was actually saying, he's like, oh, do you remember? And I was like, oh, do I remember? I was like, that was torture, the dictionary and the thesaurus. I don't even know what it starts with. How am I going to find it?
The phone book. It's only good enough to put, hang on, where's the phone book for your short people? Put it under your ass to sit down.
My girlfriend used to sit on it and drive. Yes, Lynn, I'm talking to you. She did. She had two phone books, so she had to drive.
Two?
She's
one on each cheek, or double height?
Yeah, double height. She's 4'10" and a half. I think we say 4'11", but now we can really, because she's 4'10".
But I've always wondered that, though. That's dangerous to be that close to the wheel. Does the airbag work if you're that close?
She was nowadays they make cars different, but back in the day, it was just like this, she had to put it up. I mean, she was so close to the wheel, and we'd be like, Lynn, I think we should drive. She'd be like, fuck you guys. I mean, she is a badass. She runs like a huge influencer agency. She's the head of sales. Like, she is no joke. But she did have to put those phone books, and she actually would be so pissed that I'm talking about this right now. She's never going to listen to
I
this.
love her. I love it. Little white dog just biting your ankles.
Totally. Oh yeah, Lynn. Oh, she is a force. But it is so, but again, as you just said, like, there's people that you don't know needs to hear it. And so we'll go to my story. It all starts with the tattoo. It's very long. I'm not going to go in the back, but someone that I knew in high school, actually it was like my second boyfriend. We'll just
Don't leave that out. That's an important piece. Second, yes, is he your first boyfriend ever, or second?
He was my second boyfriend ever. So the first one went to college.
I don't mean to cut you off. The first boyfriend, how much earlier? I mean, is there correlations?
Now we're really diving in here. The first boy, like my true first boyfriend, I was a freshman and he was a junior. So he was a little older. Really nice guy. I'm not going to say his name. Such a great guy. Wrestler, football player. Just a really awesome guy. He went to college, and that like kind of destroyed me a little bit. The whole, we talked about the divorce, right. The dad leaving, all that kind of stuff. When he left, I was just looking back. I was looking back at like old journals, because I was like, this is so interesting. So the second boyfriend, yes, was kind of on the heels of the first one leaving. However, the message he sent was so incredible that I was like, oh my gosh, this is insane. So he was a year older than me. And so it was, I guess, my junior year, his senior year. And he was like the bad kid. Like, the principal actually called my parents and was like, called my mom and was like, something's going on with Juliet. She can't do this. My mom, forbid it. It was like this whole or do. She forbid it, not really, but she was like, so I would say, no, I'm going to Lynn's house. And I would not be going to Lynn's house. So sorry, Mom, if you're listening to this. So basically, but he was such a good guy, but he was really misunderstood. He used to fight. I mean, he used to get in fights in school, out of school, always fighting. And I really just thought, because the town we grew up in was definitely a wealthy town. He, wasn't from that. Great, an amazing artist. He and his brothers were an amazing artist, like art that you would look at and be like, holy crap, because remember, I thought I wasn't creative, right? So I was in awe of like his art, and just a really good kid, but completely misunderstood. Parents would, because he was always getting into fights. I mean, everyone knew he would kick your ass if you looked at him sideways or looked at someone that he loved sideways or liked sideways. So there was always that, and he would fight with teachers and argue, and which again, I thought it was just kind of where, like, why, where he grew up. But he said to me in a text, I am listening to your dyslexic.
Were you communicating? I know, I know you and I talked, but did he just reach out to you out of the blue?
No, because he had a tattoo and Montgomery had the tattoo. So I had reached out to him because he was a tattoo artist for a while. And I was like,
that's right.
Yeah. So, but again, I think we probably, in the last, I'm not going to do, my dyscalculus is not going to help me get to my math, but I haven't talked to him since probably, his senior year, my junior year. I don't think we really, in the last maybe 5 years on social media. He's really not on social media that much, but I think we connected and it was like, oh, nice to see you. I hope your family's well, that kind of stuff. But I did have a question for him about a tattoo. And so that's like, I guess a couple years ago or last year, really, we reconnected. And the year before, I think it was again, like just, one message. Yeah. And so really haven't. But since we started the podcast, no mention of anything. And then he actually said, I see that you're doing this dyslexic podcast. I had no idea you were dyslexic. And like left me this like incredible message about like a situation he remembers about me giving him a card and him not wanting to read it in front of me and pretending. And he's like, I read it for 10 seconds thinking, okay, that's enough time. She's going to think I read it. He goes, and then I said, just so like attention deficit, I was like, oh wait, shit, I gave you the wrong card. I gave him Lynn's card. And he goes, I was like, and he like literally wrote all this. He's like, I was like, crap, she's going to call me out for not reading it. He goes, but you never did. And that's one of the things I remember most about you. You never made me feel stupid. And I then left him like, and then he's like, keep doing what you're doing. It's not easy to talk about dyslexia. I really appreciate what you and Brent are doing. And then I left him like 30 voice texts. I was like, wait, what?
I'm not going to, you said something, you left the key part out to me is that I always thought you were the smart one.
He did. He goes, I always thought you were smart. And I said, well, no, I hung with the smart kids because I played lacrosse. So my group of friends were really smart. I totally left that out. He's like, yeah, I thought you were a smart kid. And I was like, well, wait a second. I go, we never talked about grades ever in school and how hard it was. And he said that in there. He's like, you were always trying to hide. He's like, I was always trying to hide. And I was like, I am floored. So then I started asking questions and then I asked him to be on the podcast because he's doing some really amazing work. Really important work.
I'm looking forward. And that goes to everything that we're talking about today is that you never know. Now, you said he was always fighting. He was always fighting with teachers. He's misunderstood. Was he angry? Absolutely. Was I? Absolutely. I go and beat the shit out of the puck. So that's the part of being, misunderstood. Now, if you think back to your time with him, obviously you guys connected in a way you didn't even understand you connected. You were protecting him in ways you didn't even know. That's how smart we are. Without even knowing what we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's really crazy because again, I was like, holy shit. Like, I cannot believe it. And then again, I was like, I want to know, like, were you fighting? But I always thought you were fighting because your family life. And then I was like, wait, I don't want to know. But now I'm sure it wasn't. It was so many things because he, again, was just like, our school was not Our school was like a school that everyone was really good at everything.
Well, to that point, let's dive into that, what you just said a little bit. I thought you were fighting just because of your family life. Dyslexia doesn't discriminate. White,
It doesn't.
brown, black, pink, blue, green, yellow, what race, what culture, where you're from. It doesn't discriminate. Now, to your point is, I thought you were just fighting just because your home life. You went through a divorce. My parents were divorced. I'm divorced. Life isn't a cup of tea. It's not easy. But there's always something under there. There's no such thing as a class clown or a bully. Mm-hmm. Back to that point again. Yes,
yep.
Home life could, for some kids isn't good. But the biggest point of all that, if it's your home life, if it's your dyslexia, if you're ADHD, it's being misunderstood. Mm. The less things that we can be misunderstood with, the better, right? And that's why we talk about that, is to understand what dyslexics think, or understand what ADHD is, understand what dysgraphia is, what the calculus. That's why we talk about this. That's why we're open about this. Is to understand. And you understood them, and you just said something. I thought it was your home life. You connected with them in a way you didn't even know you connected.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and the fact that he remembered that little piece, I was like, holy shit. And I used to love writing cards back then. That's how I expressed my love. I know I don't really like, isn't that funny? I looked back at my journal.
What? You didn't
I used
talk?
to love writing no, I also talked. I'm sure I did both. Okay, I'm sure I read it as I did it. I'm sure there was a lot of communicating. I've always been good at communicating. But when I was looking back at my journal, I was like, God, my penmanship was really neat at a time, which is really interesting. I was like, wow. And then you could see it getting messier as I probably was out of school because I wasn't writing as much. Right. But one of the things, and I'm going to say it again, like IQ has nothing to do with dyslexia. Our IQs are usually higher. But the other thing, and this is why we are doing what we're doing, is like if we think of our kids and think of the generations that were diagnosed earlier and were able to say, okay, I'm dyslexic, right? I mean, we talked about Montgomery, like he even, and I'm not going to, because we haven't signed the papers, and I'm not going to say anything about that yet. But the fact that he was able to talk to the coach and say, hey, I'm dyslexic, like he is able to say it and be okay with it. And I know it's because I'm also okay with it now, but I went through my journey because of him, right? I realized, wait, I'm totally dyslexic. What, this is like ridiculous. Even though I was diagnosed, with other things younger, it is those things that if we can have the understanding, we can educate, because you can't change until you educate, right? That's one of the things that you say all the time, is these conversations are going to make that next generation be okay. And I'm going to say it because I said I'm going to say it in every episode now, like 51% of prison, or 56, whatever it is, inmates are dyslexic. I mean, like, that's not okay. That is not okay. And it's, Joel, and I wasn't going to mention his name, but he could have went down that path because of his dyslexia. He was fortunate that he didn't. But those are the kind of things when you're just written off because you're not good in school. And then you look at districts that are, really poor districts that have no one championing for their students. We're missing out on all those brilliant minds, but also those people are going through things that they don't need to be going through. They can be saved if people just talk about it, and change is what we need to do. And that's why we're, doing the education and so much more to come. But
the hard part is, your favorite line is, it's not about IQ. You're right. Most of us are on the higher end of IQ. And that's where the frustration and anger comes into, is being misunderstood every day. No, that's not what I mean. That's not what I'm talking about. So that's so every single day I deal with it. It's taken me 47 years. It took me 46 years to have somebody understand me, which is you. 46 years. I want the listeners to hear that. 46 years to have somebody, I where I work right now, there's some good people there, but most of them have no clue who I am. They have no understanding of who I am, and I got to sit there for 8, 10, 12 hours and get judged, and they have no idea, and then when you sit there and go all day long and they just look at you like you're an idiot.
I mean, but here's the thing also that I think is really important is like, and I just recently have kind of dropped saying it, but for years I would always say, especially in work environments, I would say, do you understand what I'm saying? Or does that make sense? I used to always say that. Does that make sense? And someone asked me, why do you say that? And I'm like, because a lot of times someone doesn't understand me. So I want to make sure they understand what I'm saying. It's not saying it as like a rude thing. It's like, wait, do you understand that? And I have dropped that in the last number of years, but I remember I used to say it all the time. And I would actually, and I still catch myself sometimes in emails saying, does that make sense?
Why do you, now can I ask you, because that's probably not my number one phrase. So let me ask you, why did you drop that?
I think because more people understood me and I wasn't questioned. Like, people weren't like, wait, I don't understand.
Okay. Because I don't know, like I said, that is probably my number one said phrase a day because, how many people I talk to a day? Come on, Elizabeth's like, I don't know, you talk to 10 million people. So
I do, yeah.
All the teams I coach, all the coaches, every people that I work with, so is it easy for me to speak to, 250 different people a day? No problem. So out of those 250 people, maybe 5 are dyslexic. So, I coach, some hockey teams, 4 hockey teams, none of them are dyslexic. So I say that, hey, does that make sense? Does that make sense? If it doesn't, say it. If it doesn't, say it, so it's funny you said that because that's by far the number one phrase.
Now, so this is an interesting question. Do you do it because you want to make sure is it coming from a, and I don't know if I'm going to explain this right. I'm going to ask you if it makes sense in a second. And I'm going to take it back for a second because I used to do this on the podcast. And I think someone said to me, drop that. You say that all the time. And I was like, duh, because I want to make sure my question is they understood it. So that was something I had to work on. Now, I think I did it because of people being like, wait, that doesn't make sense. I don't understand. And I don't know how to rephrase it, right? They didn't understand exactly what I'm saying. So I think that came out of more of a trauma thing of being like, I just want to make sure I'm being understood. Now, do you think yours is out of a trauma thing or is it out of a teaching thing? Because I think there's teachers that will say, does that make sense to everyone? And they do it from a good place to make sure everyone's on the same page. Or do you think it's both?
No, it's definitely not from the trauma side of things. It's, like last night, it's funny. Someone's like, last night's game was our last game before playoffs. Like, you're not yelling like you normally do. You okay? I'm like, no, today I'm not coaching. I'm teaching. I'll let the other coaches, so I'll flip that to your question. It's definitely not trauma. I want them to understand because I never understood what they're trying to say. So I never want them to feel the way I do. So it's all does that make sense to you? It's definitely not, this is definitely not the trauma portion of it. It's like, I want them to make sense because it's different. And I know that. I've learned that is if I'm talking to 10 different people, and this is what a lot of people don't get is that everybody learns differently. Are you visual? Are you audio? What, you're 5, you're talking about your 5 love languages, 5 different love languages. What are you? Everybody's different. So you have to make sure you're trying to pass that message that way. So it's okay. If I'm talking to 10 kids, they're not odd. No, I got visuals. Is there board? Is it this? So I'm always trying to find ways, is it 1, 2, 3? Is it ABC? Very easy for kids to understand. So it's definitely not trauma. It's just trying to find ways that more groups of kids can understand, what I'm trying to say to them in a simplified way, if that makes sense.
No, it totally makes sense. So you just did that again. No, but you're doing it because you are an innate natural coach teacher, right? That's not one of my strengths. And I'm not saying that negatively. I'm not a coach teacher. I used to do it because of people being like, wait, I don't understand. Can you say that again? Or what? You don't make sense or whatever. So mine was coming more from that. I think yours is coming from, again, like you're you've been coaching, teaching, talking to so many different people that it's more of you want to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Yeah, and for you is that, when you're on your podcast, you're interviewing some very high profile people, very accomplished people. So you're very smart and artistic, but when you're asking questions, like when you're telling them, what we're doing right now is audio, not visual. So that's your way of checking, how they learn. How do they learn? Did that make sense? So as I you are still a teacher in your own right.
Yeah.
So you're asking a question through a place, it's not on paper to add that audio visual look. So, I know exactly, what you're doing when you're interviewing certain people that are high level that have been very successful. It's finding out how they learn, so I wouldn't take that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As a trauma. That's you being aware of what the situation is, where you're at, and want to make sure that you're doing the best job you can to pass that message to them, or ask that question to them where they learn.
No, I love how you just broke that down. And that is probably very true. But there'll be times where, like, even sending like an email now with my, my job with FetTech, and I'll read it and I'm like, okay, that makes sense to me. But the thing that, again, if we think about this, and it's funny because I'll catch myself and I'll flip it back, but I will change. I almost write how I speak because I'm like voice texting. So I'm actually doing that. But sometimes phrases need to be put the other way when they're in words. And so I'll go to read it and I'm like, oh, wait, that's like opposite. I need to flip it. I need to put those two words in the beginning and lead with the others. I'm really good at doing that now. But there's times where if I'm trying to get a complex idea through an email, which is really, really hard, and we've talked about this, it's really hard. And I have to do that now. Like, yes, there's times where I can jump on a call with someone, but there's times where I can't, and I have to get an email out, and I'll have to read it a couple times. And, I first voice text and then I have to read it a couple times, but it is every once in a while I'll catch myself being like, I'm just going to put, does that make sense? Because it makes sense to me, but are they going to be reading it the same way?
And that's a big thing. Like, I remember looking at pictures on walls with people, like, what the fuck do you see? Not what you see. So, people on the other end, and this is exactly why we do this. The people on the other end might go, why are you asking that question? Like, does this make sense? Like, go back to the doctor, Montgomery and his concussion, right?
Your favorite.
But a lot of the people, and this is why we do the podcast, a lot of the people that aren't dyslexic don't know there's another way to think.
That's true. So true. And they don't understand it, right?
They don't. So how can they understand something if they don't think it's there's no other possible way? So the things that we talk about, that's why when we say, oh, what about this? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Makes no sense, right? Because they don't know there's another way. They don't know. Dyslexia, you just flip your B's and D's. They don't know there's another way to think. They don't know there's another way of approaching it. Why do you think 50% of people in prison are dyslexic? Because we get told we're dumb, we're stupid. So it's educating the world out that there is other options. There's other ways.
I mean, how many times have you and I just recently been in a conversation, and this is like now it's like fun for us because it's like talking to another dyslexic and they're like, oh, wait, I didn't realize you did that too. I didn't realize that that's part of the dyslexia. I thought I just did that because it's weird. And then talking to a couple of people that we've been talking to that are not dyslexic that, just thought it was flipping the B's and D's. And then we take them through a list. And, you guys listeners have heard me talk about the family that the dad said, well, what is dyslexia? Instead of me reading from, what the definition is in the dictionary, I said, well, I'll tell you what my dyslexia looks like. And he, again, was like, oh, wow. And it's, I'm going to take you through again because some of you might forgot, but like for me, I can speak all day long and like no one would ever realize that I really struggle in school. But for me to take what I'm saying, like if I went to go take this and write it, I could not do it. Like it literally will not go from my head to a piece of paper. I can't do it. Now, reading silently, I comprehend better than if I'm reading out loud. If I read out loud, what is it? Is that my card?
It's your business card.
Did I give that to you when I was in Chicago?
Yes. So to apply to this, I found that song, I cannot take an email address from a business card and put it on a computer and get it right. Never.
Oh, I get it wrong every time. Right. I have to copy. That's so funny that you have that. I have to copy. And then like, I have to that's why electronics, it makes it better because how many times? And I always will laugh if I have to take something from my phone and put it somewhere else. It's like, I will get it wrong every single time. So those are very traditional dyslexia traits. Now, I think what I was saying is reading out loud, I cannot comprehend anything. Like I have to actually read it silently to myself and it will be slower. I'm slower at reading, but that's why like in school, we would always, everyone said that, right? Like when you're in English class, you're counting how many people and then how many paragraphs and what paragraph you're going to read. So you can read it first and it's a panic. You're not hearing what anyone else says. And this goes back to, to Joel, like him saying, like, you just are trying to go under the radar to not be found out your whole lives. And the fact that we could have understood each other, like he was like, I can't believe that because I literally was like, no, I like graduated with I'm not going to say it on here, but really low. I couldn't get into University of Maryland because my SAT scores and I was being highly recruited for lacrosse. But then I was like, oh, you were already graduated. That my senior year is when things really went sideways. But all of those, the teacher calling me retarded, that was my freshman year, but we weren't friends then. Right. So I didn't go back and talk about that. Oh, hey, yeah, a teacher called me retarded. So those are like little things that you don't talk about. You try to forget about those things.
Just you bringing up the paragraphs. Last time that came up for me is in rehab. At a meeting.
Oh,
I'm like in West LA at an AA meeting, and it's called an open book. I'm like. I went with a guy and what the fuck?
Oh, that must have been awful. I'm trying to heal myself from drugs and I have to read. That's awful.
Yeah. So it's, we talk about, dyslexia, how it can be our gift. And, in the business world, we walk in the conference room, that's why you and Danny are so good. You can support each other because our ideas seem so far-fetched and we're not supported. Like it'd be how many people get fired or get laughed at, end up quitting because you walk in, what the fuck idea is that? That's so stupid. Right? Because you don't have that support of another dyslexic to understand, your approach to this. Like just the thought of sitting in that room, counting paragraphs or pound lines till I had to read again.
Yeah. It makes me sweat every freaking time I think about that. Mm-hmm. And I can see and again, you're not learning, right? What you could be learning because we are smart. But it's because we're trying to figure out how to get by and not be found out. Yeah. And not be found out every day.
We're counting sentences. So, okay, there's 6 more people. Okay, we're doing paragraphs. So then what part of them? We're not paying a fucking attention to goddamn word that's being said. Okay, we got Julie, we got Lee, we got Bob, we got Sarah. Okay, I got 5 more. Then I got 5 more. We're not paying attention. Now we're sweating. All right, how the fuck can I get out of this? How can I get out of this? How can I get this?
Right. How and you telling that about that kid hitting the kid in the back of the head every time so he would get kicked out so he didn't have to read.
Now, anytime you got called up, up to the front of the class to read or up to the board. Oh my God. Writing on the fucking board. Oh my God.
Oh my God. I could never do it. And then you would get yelled at for being messy. Oh my God.
Yeah. So every time he'd get called to write on the board or to read, when he walk up to the front of class, he'd slap somebody in the back of the head. So he purposely would get kicked out.
I did that. Right, I wish I did that. I didn't do that. I didn't want to get in trouble.
So much.
Oh, God. So much heartache. because then you can't spell and you can't write on. Oh my God. And then also being dyscalculic, being sucking at math, counting the people, and then your attention deficit going, oh wait, are they now they're counting again? And I mean, you're constantly trying.
I could make myself look so fucking small in a desk. Don't ask me. Don't ask me. Don't ask me.
Right. And then the more you shrunk, the more teachers wanted to fucking call you out.
Oh, fuck. If I could find those teachers, it's... nobody's hiding, trying to make them look small because they want to be called upon.
No, but it's always like, but then you have the teachers say, well, we thought that they were being shy. Okay. Do you see them in any other situation? Like,
okay. If they're being shy, so let's force them into something instead of helping them. Last time I checked, you're going to force a square peg in a round hole. It doesn't work out too well. But, if we help them, maybe we change directions or whatever. Nah, let's not. That sounds good. Let's watch kids suffer. Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah. I mean, and it's insanity. But again, right. The amount of learning that we did not do because of what we were trying to do to get out of things is remarkable. But, that's the other thing with dyslexia, right? The lefts and the rights. I mean, we talk about it. I talk about it all the time now. Like, I don't know my lefts and rights. It's really like, I have to really think about it. I know them, but I have to think about it. It's not just something that's natural. It's, and that's something that tying shoes for young kids. And the thing is, remember I said to you, Montgomery knew how to tie his shoes, which was crazy. He taught himself. I mean, I taught him because it was like, okay, right, this could be something. Let's see this. Then he was able to teach his brother, but my nephew couldn't tie his shoes, right? So it was like, oh, definitely dyslexic. But Montgomery, it was like, that's why he went under the radar more, because there was not everything. All of us are different. We all have different things where our dyslexia presents, but then there's also very similar things that we all also go through.
I coach, mites and squirts right now, which is mites are 5, 6, 7, 8, and then I think squirts are 9, 10. Oh, left wing. Oh, is that the near side or far side? Because they don't know left from the rights. Right. Parents are idiots who are going home in these kids are going home in car seats, and you're not telling them positions. They don't know where lefts from or rights.
Right.
And when you don't know something simple like that, let me tell you, it is not fun.
Oh, even when I played sports, I would get yelled at by the coaches all the time. You're not paying attention, because why would they think that I didn't know my lefts and rights, right? And I'm, a teenager. I should know my lefts and rights. So they just thought I was fucking around and not paying attention. Yes, there was times where I was fucking around and not paying attention. We'll call a spade a spade. But there was other times where it was I was like, I didn't have enough time to think. And it's the processing thing. That's, again, why I love what you do with coaching, because there's kids out there that are really athletic, but they're processing because of dyslexia or the way they learn is. And I remember Montgomery at a young age, we said to him, we can either talk to the coach, this is when he was little, or you should, because sometimes it looks like you're not listening when you're on the field, but I know it's because you're processing what to do. And he said, oh, right, that is true. And I was like, you'll start getting yelled at like I used to get yelled at. I used to get screamed at by my coaches. And it was because I was processing. Right. And so there's so much to it, and so much where you just have to keep getting yourself up, and it's the understanding.
The more we support each other, the better we'll be, because we understand each other.
Mm-hmm. And I love that story about Brother Rice. Oh my God, I would like that. You guys must have been just so touched, because again, and that's so nice that they came up to you and weren't just like kept it to themselves. That's what I love, that they came up to you and said, because there's so many people that maybe wouldn't, they might be like, oh, I don't want to, I'm still uncomfortable, like all the people that you help. But the fact that people do, because a lot of people do reach out, but that's like a really, really special one. I mean, that's an amazing one.
He's like, the past 40 years, that AA and everything I've been in, nobody's helped me more than you did in a 30-minute conversation. And then let me introduce your wife, who makes me still, sound things out.
I love it. I love it, though. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm going to leave it at that, because that is just, again, that it just shows you, I'm not going to leave it at that. It just shows you that I was like, can I leave it at that? No, I can't. It shows you that is where you're like, there's things where you're meant to be and things that you're not meant to be. And that's another thing that I want the listeners, whether you're dyslexic or not dyslexic, there are signs that God, universe, whatever, whoever you want to say, but there are signs that you are not on the right path. And when it's like constant negativity, you have to check yourself to see what you're bringing to the table there as well. But you also have to think, okay, these are reminders that this is not what I'm meant to be doing. And then you get reminders of those two. And it's like screaming from the rooftops, which I know, since we've been doing this, since, I know you've had them your years as well. And I've done that in my life too. It's like, okay, I'm on the right path. But like the screaming from the rooftops that we get every single day is amazing. It's amazing. And it's inspiring.
The door is definitely not closed, and the closing in certain directions. And, the foundation and my purpose, no question, it's never been clearer than, the dyslexic world.
All right, I'm going to leave it at that. So rate, review, and share. You guys, you know what to do. And as Brent has said, and we talk about this all the time, you don't know who needs to hear this. Again, we keep giving you individuals that come to us and say, oh my gosh, thank you for sharing that because it has changed something in my life. You don't know who needs this. You don't know whose life you can actually change with just a conversation. So go out, rate, review, and share, and we'll see you for another episode of Word Blindness Dyslexia Exposed.